Hi, Five Oaks and Rachel Carson Falcons. Welcome to another episode of Read with Force. Five Oaks, Rachel Carson educators. I'm Mrs. Omerman, here as always with my friend, Mrs. Perenboom. Hi, Mrs. Perenboom. How are you?
Hi, I'm doing great today. How are you?
I'm doing good too. Any day that we can talk to these kids is an awesome day. And I am especially excited today to introduce them to my friend, and then hopefully it'll be your guys' friend soon too. But this is Mr. Richardson. Hi, Mr. Richardson.
Hi, everybody. I am the Teen Services Librarian at the Cedar Mill Library, and that means I get to do programs for middle and high schoolers and order books for middle and high schoolers. We have a teen council that meets once a month, made up of teens from the area. So all sorts of different activities with middle and high schoolers.
I love that. Wait a second. Are you saying that your youth advisory committee has middle schoolers, or is it just high schoolers?
We do have a few middle schoolers. I try and get a couple every year. It depends on who applies, so that kind of drives it.
I bet I have a lot of readers at this school who might be a little bit interested in being on an advisory committee for a public library.
That would be awesome.
It would be awesome. We have a lot of books in our Five Oaks Rachel Carson Library. We do not have near the amount of books that you have. So if a student wants a book and we just don't have it in our library, how would they go about getting it from Cedar Mill or Bethany Library, or maybe even another public library near them?
That's a good question. And of course, it depends on whether you want an ebook or a physical book. If you want a physical book from any Washington County library, you just go to wccls.org and search on there for the book you're looking for. And then you can place a hold on it. In the catalog, you need to tell it where you want to pick it up. But we are pretty much all of us are open for holds pickup. The libraries themselves are not open yet, although Beaverton and Hillsborough are doing some experimenting with having people inside right now. But yeah, you come to the library, you pick up your holds, and you check it out that way. And most of you should have a youth access card, and you can check out 5 physical items with that card, just books and audiobooks, I believe. I don't think it applies to video games or other things. You would have to get a full library card to check out the video games and other things like that. But that is how you would get a physical book at the Cedar Mill or Bethany libraries. And we draw books from all over the county. So even if there's a book at Forest Grove or Cornelius, we have a van that drives around between the libraries every day. So we'll get that book from the other library and get it over to ours where you can pick it up.
I love that. So if there's a book that's super popular at our library and there's a waiting list for a long time because we only have one copy of a book, it is totally worth getting your youth access card, which is your student number, and your teacher can help you figure that out. If you don't remember, you can totally request it from Washington County and get it to the public library that's closest to you. I love that.
Really?
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
It is.
Mr. Richardson, I know that for my own kids through the Beaverton City Library, we can get like a bundle of like surprise books. Do you guys do that too at Cedar Mill?
Yeah, we do. So we've got these magnetic, at least at Cedar Mill, they're magnetic board, and they've got a little card on them, and they're kind of organized by theme. So you just look on the board and there's a graphic novel one, or there's we'll have different themes like good 4th grade reads or historical fiction. And then you just grab that card, take it inside, and then we'll check out a pack of 5 or so mystery books on whatever that theme is to you.
I love that. That's like my favorite thing. And my own kids like have a hard time picking something new because we get stuck in our same routines. And so getting those mystery bundles have been really good for my own kids picking up something new. So you guys should try it out.
We did open a very small browsing section this week. We're kind of having a soft opening, but right now you can visit the library and browse books, a very small section.
Whoa. So do you have in this small section, do you have middle grade and young adult books in there?
We do, yes.
Oh, students, that is more than I can offer you at our library. So it sounds
And
like, go ahead.
yeah, I would just say that, yeah, we still have limitations. Everybody has to wear a mask. We can only have 7 people at a time in the library. Yeah, we ask everybody to stay apart and all of that. And then we limit it to just 5 minutes or so. So you can browse real quick, grab a few things, and then check them out.
But I do love that getting a book from either the Five Oaks Rachel Carson Library or a public library is pretty much the same. You go on the catalog, you look for what you want, you put the book on hold, and then either I will contact you or somebody at the public library will contact you to tell you when it's ready, and then you go pick it up. So the process is very, very similar. And I know a lot of you have already been checking out books from the public library on Sora. So if we don't have it in Beaverton School District, you can just press that button to go to the next library and choose Washington County Library Services, and boom, you can look there as well. And I know a lot of you are taking advantage of that.
All the time. I do it all the time.
Yes. And so I've actually been able to get some of our books that I know we have in our library. If I know I'm home and I won't be in the building for a while, I've actually been getting them digitally from Washington County Library just because I'm impatient and I want to read it when I want to read it. Mm-hmm. So, well, that's awesome. And this month, February, is Black History Month. And like I said, I have a lot of books in the library, but you have like thousands more. So, Mr. Richardson, what are some of good reads maybe that you've found that apply to Black History Month?
Yeah, I would look through the library the other day and I grabbed a few, and I've read a couple of these, but I'll just tell you some of the ones that we have at Cedar Mill. One that I really enjoyed was called March. And this is a graphic novel about John Lewis. He is a person who was involved in the Civil Rights March, and he also became a congressperson later. You can see some of the drawings there. And this first volume, there are 3 volumes in the story. First volume's about his life growing up in Alabama and first meeting Martin Luther King Jr., and that kind of inspired him to get involved in the civil rights movement. And how the real thing that I like about those is, you hear these names, Martin Luther King Jr. and John Lewis, and you think, or Rosa Parks, wow, these people were just like superhuman because they did this big thing, the civil rights movement. Well, when you read a book like this, it really shows, there were a lot of people involved, and they organized, and they talked about what they were going to do. They had plans, and it was really, a team effort, and people worked together to make these things happen. It wasn't just 1 or 2 individuals that are really well known. And this book series really illustrates that. John Lewis was amazing, but he had a lot of people that he was working with that helped make these changes that we hear about. And that's one of the reasons that I really like that book. So that's one book that I like that's in the collection. Another book, and this is the playaway version of it, and I don't know if many of you know what playaways are, but it's a little audio device. The whole book is on this little cartridge here. So you just plug in headphones and a battery, and you can listen to it that way. So we have a bunch of these, and this is one of the ones that we have. So Port Chicago 50 is set during World War II. It's a true story, and it's about people who worked at the naval yards there at Port Chicago. And these people were loading ships with bombs and different things, and it wasn't a super safe working condition, and there was a big explosion, and a lot of people died. And a lot of African Americans actually worked at that port, and so some of them started to protest the conditions there after that explosion, and they were threatened with a bunch of different things. And so some of them backed down, but 50 of them stuck together and continued their protests. And it's kind of the story about what happened to them for them standing up for their rights and safer working conditions. So, and Steve Sheinkin is a really good author of history books for teens. So this one's a really good one. He has many others that are great. So he would be a good author to look up. Another good history that's pretty recent is called Stamped. Oh, you can see right through it.
Yeah, that's
So I listened to the audio of that one, and it's read by Jason Reynolds. And they adapted a longer, much longer a book for adults called Stamped from the Beginning to be a very readable copy for teens. And this is all about the history of racism, mostly in America, but they do talk about Europe and how some of these racist ideas got started in the very beginning. And it's a really eye-opening look at a lot of issues that don't often get covered in history classes. So a lot of people reading that and talking about it this year. So that's a good one. And
I'm going to pop in really
yeah.
quick just to remind our students that if you want to read Stamped, you get to read Stamped. We have 100 copies in our library. So do not let the fact that it's popular and gone a lot of the time stop you from reading one of the best books written. That's my little commercial.
Cool. That's great that you have that many copies. This is another book that's in our nonfiction section for teens. It's called Stolen Justice. And this is about the voting rights struggle with African Americans in particular. A lot of these other books touch on that, and particularly the civil rights era. And I think even going up to today, we can see in some of the stuff that's happened recently, there's been a long struggle for making sure that people have the right to vote in this country. And if you want to learn more about the history of that book would be a good one to pick up for that. And then another history about America and some of the struggles we've had with our past and African Americans is called We Are Not Yet Equal. And this is a book for teens in our collection, and it's similar to Stamped, but written by two women. So if that would be another great book if you wanted to look at the history of African Americans in the US.
Those are some great selections. And I am so glad you pulled out a Playaway copy as well to show our students one more way that they can get a hold of a book. That's an excellent, I've never checked one of those out. Have you, Mrs. Paramoon?
I haven't, but how awesome is that? You just pop it in your pocket and listen away and not get distracted by all the other things on your phone or whatever while you're listening to audiobooks. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, and when I talk with teens, what I found is they don't often have a CD player anymore.
Yeah.
So it doesn't make sense for me to buy books on CD for them. But this is all self-contained, so you just check that out and, like I said, put a battery in it and headphones in and away you go. And I know you guys do a lot on Project Lit. I just wanted to say we have multiple copies of all of those books. So if that's something you guys are interested in, we definitely got you covered there. We have lots of copies of OBOB books if you guys are doing OBOB. So we try and have, multiple copies of the things that people are reading and are excited about. And we are still buying new books, even though we haven't been as open as we would like. So there's lots of new books to check out. And, if you know what you're looking for, great way to do it is to get on the catalog and search things and place those holds.
Agreed. And I do want to talk about the generosity, Mr. Richardson, of you and Cedar Mill Library. When an OBOB year is over, or perhaps Project Lit is getting more titles, the public library actually needs to discard some of the multiple copies that they have to make room for more. And so Mr. Richardson just dropped off some older OBOB books for us so that we have so many more copies of that. So thank you so much, Mr. Richardson, for
You're welcome.
That generosity. Mrs. Paramoon, I know you are sharing some books today. What do you have for us?
Mr. Richardson inspired me to think of another book from a more Black history type book. And I was thinking about The Lions of Little Rock. And The Lions of Little Rock is about a girl in Alabama in the late 1950s and going through the whole trauma, however you want to say it, of desegregation of schools. And she has a new friend at school and it's great and they get along great. And then her friend kind of disappears and stops coming to school. And it turns out that this new friend she'd made had been what they called passing as white in the school. And so she was Black, but her skin was really light. And so she played it that she was white and she was going to the white school. And that was a big deal. And so many people disagreed with it. And it became a big issue in this little town. And so it's the story of these two girls and their friendships and how they kind of dealt with what was going on and moved on and tried to make a difference in the world and make things better. And it won a bunch of awards too, I think. And it was an OBOB book a few years ago, so I'm sure we have a lot of copies of that one.
We do have a lot of copies of that one, yes.
Awesome. So the other one I want to talk about is just because it's my favorite, and I feel like we haven't talked about my best friend, Kwame Alexander yet. And so I'm going to share the crossover. It's not the cross, it is the crossover. Okay, so Crossover is a story of two boys who are basketball stars. They're twin brothers, and their dad was a star basketball player also. And so these two boys are growing up, they're playing basketball, they're always kind of in competition with each other to be the best basketball player. They're also kind of in competition with their dad's memory, like how people remembered him as a basketball player. And they start to grow a little bit apart, because they're growing and changing in their teens, and that's kind of what happens a little bit, right? So this is their story, and then this is actually the graphic novel version of it, which I think is just amazing. So they took this book, novel in verse, my friends, one of my favorite things to read. Look how few words there are on a page, but the story is there. And then they took that story and they turned it into a graphic novel. And the images are just awesome. I love it. And then there's other stories by Kwame Alexander. We'll talk about him another day. I can't take all the time, but look at all these awards, you guys. You know how I feel about awards. Look at them all. It's amazing. Okay, there we go, Miss Zimmerman. That was my big share for today. What do you have for us?
Well, I'm going to pile on. We'll just have a Kwame Alexander day because, and this is sort of Black history, if you like the crossover and you read it and you want to know more about the twins' dad, before he became a basketball player, you can read Rebound. And I loved Rebound because when their dad grew up, it was kind of at the same time that I grew up. So a lot of the references that he pulled out, I can understand. I don't understand you guys sometimes, but these I could understand. But not only is it a book in verse, it's also a graphic novel. So it's got some pages that are in verse and some that are in graphic novel. And so it takes the best of both worlds and combines them into one. And so
Ms. Zimmerman, can I ask a question though? Yes. Which order did you read the books in?
I read the crossover first, and then I read Rebound, but that's only because Rebound wasn't out before the crossover. I don't know. What would you do you think? I was fine reading the crossover first and then reading Rebound.
That's what I did too.
What about you, Mr. Richardson? Which one would you do? Have you read them both?
I think I've just read Rebound.
Oh, you didn't even read the crossover then. Okay.
Is that right? No, I read crossover. I haven't read Rebound yet.
Okay. Rebound came out later. It's like a prequel, right? Yeah. So it's one of those things. But
I think you could read it in either order, because I have other friends who read Rebound and then read crossover. So if you guys read them and you read them in the other order, so you read Rebound first, let us know if you think it works that way.
Yeah. And I've been kind of in shock. I just talked to 7th grade humanities and talking about historical fiction and thinking that 9/11 happening is now historical fiction, and even Rebound going back to the 80s and 90s growing up is now historical fiction. And that just like hurts my heart a little bit because in my brain, I'm still 17. So one book that is definitely historical fiction, and I promise I was not alive for, is the book Day of Tears, a novel in disguise. And this is about slavery, and specifically a slave who tells his story. about being ripped from his family and sold and treated horribly sometimes and treated okay sometimes. And the reason I say okay is because I still think it's impossible to own a slave and be good to this. I don't know how to explain it. It's a hard conundrum that I have in my head. But like the other books in verse, this is not a lot of text on a page. It's a novel in dialogue, so kind of like a novel in verse. But you get a lot of emotion in just a little bit of text. So I highly recommend Day of Tears, a novel in disguise. And so students, now it's your turn. We want to hear from you. What are some of your favorite Black history books, or what are you doing to commemorate this month? We want to hear from you, okay? So email Mrs. Parable or myself and tell us what is going on. We want to thank Mr. Richardson for being here, for taking time out of his day and being here. Thank you so much, Mr. Richardson.
Oh, happy to be here. Love to hear what you guys are doing.
And when you go to the library and you see Mr. Richardson in person, make sure you tell him that you're a Five Oaks or Rachel Carson middle school student and that you saw him on Read with Force. All right, guys, until next week, we will bring you more books. Happy reading. Bye.
Bye.